Hey, guys. Couldn't get the camera working. Sorry for a little bit of a delay on the live show. Appreciate your patience. We're just going to use a different camera and a different angle, and somehow life will just go on. You know, Deborah says happy hump day to everybody. I can't do hump day the way Moan can, but you know, that's his job. Ramon Foster, by the way, wasn't able to have a show today. His kid is something truly special at the youth baseball level, and Ramon has to do a lot of traveling with the young man. And today he was doing some of that as well, and tomorrow, by the way. So he's really getting around as the young man continues to climb the ranks here. Never worry about Moan. You guys are always like, the Ramon show, he's fine. Everything's fine. We're going to talk today about Pat Freiermuth, and we're going to talk about him in a way that's both respectful and at the same time, well, respectfully skeptical. How's that? Respectfully skeptical, meaning it doesn't even have to be about him. Every summer, and this has been going on for a while now, every summer is the one where we say, this is it. We can project, we can safely, not just optimistically, but reasonably project that this is the year of Muth. This is the year that he ascends to another level of tight end dumb. And we do it with such conviction that we convince ourselves of this. And then season comes along, you're still kind of wondering why it's not there, especially when there was that one game where it was there and everybody got all stoked, you know, like where the Bengals do something really stupid schematically. But if you go over Pat's statistics, if you go over what he's done through his Steelers career beginning in 2021, you'll find actually remarkable consistency. He had 79, not targets. I'm going to get into receptions. 60, 63, 32 in 2023. He was limited to 12 games. And then 65 this past season. So once more, in his full seasons, 60, 63, 65. Yardages, 497, 732, 653. Touchdowns, 727. First downs, we can do this all day. 34, 37, 32. Every year ends up being a lot like the last. You can have a new quarterback who commits to, that's it, it's going to be me and Pat. It's the me and Pat show. You can have the offensive coordinator who is more associated with tight ends than any other coordinator in the league, that being Arthur Smith. And you still see the same thing. And then what happens is we start trying to analyze that from the Muth perspective. And I'm going to show you what I mean with a couple of these comments. This is from Joseph Williamson. Says, he's not elite. He's just an average player. How do we know that? How do we know that? Until you see him targeted on some consistent basis. How do you know that? Here, let's read off his targets. 79, 98, 78. Not coincidentally, the year in which he was targeted 98 times, he had his highest output for yardage. He had his second highest output for catches. Until you try it, you're not going to know. I've got another way of looking at this, and this is also statistically. I'm going to go to his game log last year. You're not going to believe some of this. This was something that I was thinking about a lot as it was going on last year. If you go to, this is the 2024 regular season. Listen to his final few games of the regular season. This is the first number I'm going to give you is catches. The second number is targets. You ready? 5, 7, 3, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 2, 4, 4, 6, 7, 3, 3. One outlier in all of this, and that's a 3 and a 6 against the Eagles, who you might recall were pretty good. then 3-3, 7-8, 8-11, and then in the playoff game in Baltimore, 3 of 4. What's missing here? Is it the catches or is it the targets? What's missing here? He's operating in those final few games, by the way, most of the ones that I mentioned, with Russell Wilson, who's a quarterback who does not prefer to throw across the middle. And thus, Pat had to do a lot of these L-shaped routes. He had to head out to the sideline, stuff that he and I have actually done a lot of talking about over the last couple of years that he's really gotten a lot better at, but it's not, it's not tight end stuff. If he were actually treated like a tight end and they were to throw to him over the middle like a tight end, you would realize that what's been missing all along is what Mr. CJ says here, and that is the targets. That's it. That's it. Now, is he the greatest tight end in the league? No. Is he the most complete tight end? Is he the most dynamic in terms of his overall, athleticism, ability to convert something small into something large? No. But is he top 10 or so? I'd kind of lean in saying yes, but at least if he had the scheme and the quarterback and the want to make it happen. And that's what I want to talk about today here. I don't want to talk about, let's hope for Pat. This is Pat's year. I believe in Pat. I want to hear what actually has to occur. Let's do like an inside football type of thing with you guys. I'm going to push you here, especially those of you who are really into the X's and O's and everything. I want to hear what has to happen for Pat to become that guy this year. That guy this year. We'll do that. We'll begin that right when we come back.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Hey guys, welcome back. If I didn't introduce myself, and I don't think I did, I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is the Double Shot of Steelers show, and it's one that currently takes place without Chris Halleck because he's on vacation. So it's just me. The boss is back, which is why things are going to be a little bit more slickly produced today. And CJ thinks I took that break to take a sip, and I actually forgot to do that. So I'm going to do that now while I look for the first thing that you guys are going to suggest for Pat Freiermuth to become a real live impact offensive weapon, a big time offensive weapon in 2025. Mark Cunningham says it's as simple as getting him more targets. Okay, let's get a little more advanced than that. We can do that. You guys can have your hot take shows and everything else the rest of the day, and you can get into who's got a football camp that they didn't attend or other crap like that. We're going to do football. Okay? We're going to do football here. Jay Mood says he needs to not fumble on game-saving drives. I knew that was coming. Real football stuff, guys. Yes, fumbles are real football. Yes, he has had a fumbling issue at bad times, and they have really stuck out. I'm going to concur with that. It's one of the things that's kept him from that tier. I'm talking about how you get him open, how you execute with him at a very high level. Teresa says he has to block better, and the OC and the head coach have to trust their quarterback to throw over the middle and to not turn the ball over. Well, Aaron Rodgers, when he is at his Aaron Rodgers-est, can make any pass. It's part of what's made him one of the top half dozen quarterbacks of all time over the course of his Hall of Fame career. So he doesn't have a phobia, or he doesn't have a shortcoming, and he doesn't have any reason really to not throw over the middle. I do know And I value to an extent that Freiermuth was one of the guys who'd been communicating with Aaron Rodgers before the signing. It's not a long list of guys who did. In fact, when Rodgers talks about it, he basically mentions Pat and he mentions DK Metcalf. He was hearing from them. Well, he heard from Cam Hayward as well. He's formed some sort of connection already with him. And that's something that's worth monitoring here. Williams says Pat just needs the opportunity. Yes, but come at me here. He needs the opportunity to take over the game like Kelsey and KC. What is that? Be more specific. I am challenging you here. I'm putting you on the spot. You know how you're always the ones comfortable saying, I don't know anything about football, so to whoever. Okay, this is now your turn here. Matthew Bunk says quarterback has to get in the ball. Well, no, duh, Matthew. I love you, man, but we're looking for inside stuff. Inside stuff. Dwight Jefferson says an effective running game will make play action more viable, which should open up the middle of the field more, and Smith/Rodgers utilizing Muth. Now, an effective running game is going to rely, as Teresa pointed out, partly on Muth, being better at executing his blocks. He's not a bad blocker. I don't know that anybody would grade him at some sort of super high level as a blocker either. Can he be better at it? Sure. Can he improve at it at his age? Yeah. I mean, everybody can get a little bit better at anything. David says, what has to happen? I think this is complementary football. I mean, running, using DK Metcalf, and with that, the tight end will work. But can you target him anyway? Why does it have to be, you have to check off this whole list of stuff before you target the tight end? Not to bring up unfair examples, but Ben Roethlisberger didn't have to go through some process of elimination to find Heath Miller. It was the other way around. He was looking for Heath. Heath was his third down guy. Heath was his, got to get a 10-yard gain guy. Heath was his red zone guy. He wasn't apologizing for it. He wasn't making sure everything else was in order beforehand. Preston Powell says, and I like this, implement more 3 tight end sets and use him over the middle more. Now, you say 3 tight end sets, but you're saying it in a vacuum, because as we're communicating right now, you have Pat here, you have Darnell Washington here, and the guy who was supposed to be the third tight end, but also the second most targeted, was Donald Parham. He blew out his Achilles. He's gone for the year. So is that now Connor Hayward? And if so, is he really lining up at tight end? Do you really have a 3 tight end set? I don't know. Do they still need to get one to revisit that subject? Or if you do that, are you further taking targets away from Freiermuth? Another thing very much worth bringing up. William comes in and says, greetings, DK. Awfully formal today, William. I never wanted another tight end. We have a good one. Just a quality WR2. Like, that's fair. I've heard both sides of that argument. I've actually attempted, just for the fun of it, to make both sides of that argument. Meaning, do you bring in Jonnu Smith? And if you bring in Jonnu Smith, do you attack teams with 3 tight ends all the time and don't worry about WR2? The concern I have there is the obvious. Metcalf goes down. You still need the big play wide receiver. You still need somebody who's capable of getting downfield and making stuff happen on a consistent basis, not just by happening to fly open or sneak open the way Calvin Austin might. Greg says, this coordinator and both of these quarterbacks, I presume he's referring here to both Rodgers and Mason Rudolph, are very effective with over-the-middle plays. All Pat needs is quality targets. I still want more. I'm pushing for more here. I'm looking for actual answers that we can tie these guys down to, instead of just saying, use him more, make him better. Twan John says, aside from designed plays, the best way for Freiermuth to get open is off option routes. Develop a chemistry with the quarterback and know where he's going to be. That takes time. And Rodgers is new. And Rodgers is not going to have, some 5 million reps in Latrobe. He's barely going to have 1/4, if that, of football in the preseason. And then the games get going. So how do you develop that trust, chemistry? Do you do it by sitting in the film room? Do you do it by chatting with each other? Do you do it by letting him know, hey, whenever I do this, I'm in trouble. Come back to me. I don't know. I like the way you're thinking, though. I like that. Sean Gross says, effective inside running to open up play action. Now we're getting warm. Because think about what you're doing. Effective inside running, and I know this is what Sean's getting at, brings the other team's linebackers in at you. And you want that. You want Muth to do this right around them or even right through them. And if you have yourself an accurate, knowledgeable, experienced quarterback, you can find a way to thread that needle through those guys or just over those guys and hit a very nice big target in number 88 and utilize him that way. That, in turn, softens up that group the next time you're going to do that effective inside running thing, and you become even more effective at inside running. Seam routes. Basically, well, essentially, we're talking about the same thing, says Chris here. We're talking about seam routes. Or we're talking about just do this. Just do this. Go at them. Hot knife through butter process. Randy Wagner asks, does Arthur Smith have the most capability to utilize and bring out the most potential of our players, including Pat Freiermuth? Well, you can have a reputation, as I mentioned earlier, that Smith does, obviously, for tight ends. You can also have the record to support it. If you've never done this, it's fun and it's worthwhile to take a look at the Falcons' receiving stats, the individual receiving stats in the years that he was the head coach. It's actually kind of funny. The leader is always a tight end. The second leader in terms of catches is a wide receiver. And then like the next 10 are tight ends. So he knows how to do it, and he's done it. Charles Turner says that, I hate to say it, but Washington actually might have a better season. He will not. Darnell is not that guy that everybody wants him to be. Darnell is not, for those of you who go back with the Steelers, he's not Eric Green. He's not going to just freak people out, get them to stay off of him, make the catch, and then do something super crazy athletic afterward. He's not all that. He is a weapon, and he can be more of a weapon, but I'm always trying to tamp expectations here. Besides, I'm sorry, but they need Darnell to block. They really do. Michael Cross says, the offense has been too predictable, which didn't do Muth any favors. When the Steelers ran on 99% of first downs and like 95% of second downs, it left them in a lot of third and longs. This is an unexpected but great point. Because if all you're doing is tasking your tight end to be your fail-safe because you couldn't get anywhere handing the ball off the first two times because you were out there to show everybody how macho you were with those first two runs, you're not getting anything done. I lay that one on the coordinator. The coordinator, in turn, had other concerns and other things that he felt were responsible for it, and he felt he was justified in trying to run the ball. But maybe that'll change with Caleb Johnson and Johnson's comfort level with the wide zone blocking. I don't want to stray from the subject too much here, but yes, the running game can have a big impact here. RJ Litzenberger, who needs to become a member here. What's that all about, dude? Comes in here without the green letters. You can do that by going to dkps.net/join. to become a member. All kinds of perks. You get to be part of members only shows. And look at that. Look how fast she is. See, you can tell she's back. Our goal is 3,000 members by kickoff in New Jersey. We're exercising the latitude that we have here because it's our company to move the goalposts. We're never going to hit 3,000 by the original goal, and we won't apologize for it either. Pass blocking from the running back, says RJ, could free the tight ends from their blocking responsibilities on certain plays. More Jaylen Warren. All of the running backs are going to have to pass block, RJ. Just ask Caleb how many different people have told him that and how many times per day. Denny says a solid wide receiver 2 keeps Pat from being doubled with a safety. I don't think you're going to see Pat doubled. If anyone's going to get doubled in this offense, it's going to be Metcalf. And I think there are situations in which that'll happen, but that's all the more reason that I happen to agree with you that you need a WR2, mostly to keep guys off of Metcalf. Tight end, I don't think it's going to have that much of an impact. There are ways to make this happen. Andrew says to put Freiermuth in motion before the snap. You see some of that. You don't see a ton. Cheat motion / speed motion. They should be using it way more often for receivers in general. That's fair. They also have needed better players. That part I don't think as much about schematics as I do about personnel in recent years. Odin comes in and says the offense needs to stay on schedule in order to incorporate him because he is not the first option. They need fewer 3 and outs. Well, this goes to the subject. There's all kinds of different terminology that applies to this. My favorite one is rhythm. When I see an offense operating with rhythm, I get excited. I believe in the whole team when that happens because I also see an offense that's going to maintain possession. It's going to work its way down the field. It's going to give your defense a chance to rest. I believe in the final 3 games of the 2023 NFL season around here. Why? Because that's the last and only time, really, that we've seen real rhythm for this offense. Run it here, run it there, try this, hit Pat, hit George deep, hit George in short, hit Cal, move the ball around, go back to your running game, multiple tight ends, big sets, convert on 3rd and 1, convert on 4th and 1. The Steelers were doing all of those things in those games. And no, of course, Mason Rudolph doesn't get all of the credit for that. But I can quote no less an authority than Art Rooney himself for saying this is what we look like with competent quarterback play. That's it. Micah wants to know what I suggest. Here's what I've got, Micah. The first thing is, and I'm going to give you an intangible first, okay? And I'm not sharing with you anything that I haven't already shared with 88 himself. He has to become more of a squeaky wheel. He has to make his presence known, and he has to make it felt. And that means through the week. That means before the season in Latrobe. That doesn't mean you have to make a complete, derriere of yourself the way Antonio Brown used to do at St. Vincent. But it does mean letting everybody know that you're there. Show some of that. And you've seen some of it from him on occasions where he's got that fire and he's spiking the ball after he gets the first down and does one of these. More of that. Make the offense, the players, and the coaches feel like you're carrying them downfield. Make them feel like it's your offense or that you're a big part of the offense, that you are not a complementary or supplementary piece. Another thing that I'll throw in, and this one will be tangible, excuse me, is that I want to see Freiermuth force the issue in the middle of the field. Yes, it's wonderful that he went along with everybody, notably because of Russell Wilson not wanting to throw to the middle of the field, and he was doing those L-shaped routes that I mentioned, and he got really good at them, and we could see it in Latrobe. Force the issue to the middle of the field. Talk to people. Have conversations. He has people who will listen to him. Okay? Talk to Rodgers. Talk to Smith. Talk to Tomlin. Do whatever it is that you have to do and say, hey, I'm ready to make a real difference in the middle of the field. Get me the ball. I'll work on spinning my way out of there. I'll work on whatever. But that's the stuff that's within his control. Okay? That's the stuff that's within his control. Both of those things. If it looks like just another Freiermuth season, we can revisit those statistics from earlier. That's exactly what it'll be. Jay Mood says, have Freiermuth find soft spots. And yes, this, and sit in them. Sit in them. How much do you hate when the Steelers are facing an opponent that does that? That just says, here's our Here's our big rear end tight end. We're going to just plant him X number of yards off the ball. You can't do anything about it. You've got to commit one, maybe even 1.5 people into his vicinity. And it's going to open up a lot of things for a lot of other people that, by the way, weren't open in the playbook last year because of Wilson. Garrett Slingerland says, I like this show today, by the way. This is fun. In fairness to everything else, Pat could also stand to work on his route running, and with Rodgers there to build further chemistry so that he knows he's got someone he can trust. I'm open to your stance on this. I've not seen or heard anyone suggest that Freiermuth has route running issues. If you feel that way, that's your right. Maybe somebody else here will as well. I don't. Jason Williams can come back and says that he can come back and just tell Rodgers that he's open. There does have to be a respect factor too. You know, when somebody's got 5 gazillion passing yards over the course of his career, he probably knew you were open. He probably had that sense. This is like some winger, you know, telling Sidney Crosby, hey, did you not see me over there on the power play? I was like wide open. You know, you could have passed it to me. You know, Wandering Warrior claims, hey, boss, referring to the boss over here, DK was picking on us. I have no idea what you're talking about. I would, and also, if I was going to pick on somebody, I wouldn't pick on Wandering Warrior. I'd pick on somebody my own size. I have no idea how size you are. AFL says, exactly, DK, nothing else has to happen except a quarterback who can and will throw over the middle. Yeah, but it's not that simple. It's not that simple. You know, I'm telling you, I am as interested, anticipatory as I've been for any training camp in terms of what the offense will end up showing out at Chuck Noll Field. It's not super telling. They're not going to put all their plays out there for everybody to see. They know there are fans in the crowd shooting film, and they know that the Ravens and the Bengals have people that are paying attention to that film and putting it all together. Notice I left the Browns out. I have no idea what it is that they do. Denny says, if Pat moved outside the numbers, your outside runs have slightly better blocking. I want to see a true impact tight end. Okay, I want to see somebody making a difference right where he's supposed to be. That said, Andrew says Arthur Smith had Kyle Pitts line up outside on 35% of offensive snaps as a rookie in 2021 in Atlanta. That number dropped for Pitts to 20% last season. Could we trade for Pitts and use him as an outside receiver? We loaded that question up. He's not the one whose name has really been bandied about over there. It's been more about Jonnu Smith, but again, it's way more than that about WR2. It really is. The rest of this stuff is fun, and we'll see where it goes. But you know, the leaning that I get from over there is that it would be a WR2 instead. Christopher Sexton says Darnell Washington losing weight, realizing how important this season is to his future in the NFL. Will he be better? And maybe that helps Muth. Darnell, for anybody who doesn't know, at minicamp, and he talked about this openly, was being utilized in different spots along the line of scrimmage, which is interesting and would strongly suggest that, yes, he is going to be more of an option, more of a passing option for his quarterbacks than he's been in the past. I'm going to keep saying this. Go easy on him, okay? He doesn't have some long, rich history of putting up big receiver numbers, and that tends not to be something that forms itself at the NFL level. So is he seeing this as a big season for himself receiving-wise? Yes. Would that have an impact on Muth? Well, yeah, probably. It'd probably mean fewer targets. Trevor has a good question here. I like this one. Although we need to get Trevor signed up as a member too here. DKPS.net/join when the show ends, Trevor. You can do this, my man. Besides Rodgers, is Pat the offensive leader on the team? Does he have a chance to be a team captain? He has no chance to be a team captain. He has a less than zero chance to be a team captain because your offensive captain is going to be your Hall of Fame quarterback. So scratch that one. Is Pat the offensive leader on the team? Answer, also no. That also is going to be Rodgers. You just don't overthink this stuff. This isn't about who, comes into the locker room and shouts on the sideline or whatever. This guy is who he is. Okay, regardless of what you think of the decision to bring him in or who you favored or questioning his commitment or anything else here, he is who he is. When you bring him in, all of these other usual discussions become non-discussions. He is the leader of the team. He's going to walk out there for the coin flip with Cam Hayward, Miles Killebrew. I think TJ Watt's made some of those trips. And that's just the way that's going to be. But if I tinker with your question and I say, is he an offensive leader? Is he one of them? My answer to that is he better be. And this is where I'm going to revisit that remark that I made earlier. Okay, and I would say the same thing to him. It's one thing to say something here and there and whatever else, but it has to start getting to the point where it's heard, meaning heard by his teammates, by more than his teammates, I should say, heard by his coaches, heard by the public at times when it's the occasion. Okay, I know what he's doing behind the scenes. You don't always, because if he's telling me something off the record, it stays off the record. Okay, but he needs to be more of that. He needs to be a lot more of that, and I think that in turn will help boost him up. Like this, Kyle Lindgren says, how about if Muth just wears some always bleeping open eye black? I mean, that's not his personality, to say the least. But, Wandering Warrior comes in with his size report. Oh, dude, okay, you got me. I'm 6'2". Wandering Warrior comes in at 6'4" and says, who you calling small? I was not picking on you either way. John Glick says, is 1,500 combined receiving yards in the tight end room this year unrealistic of an expectation? It is. Because all right, let's say that Pat has his career high. Okay, and that would mean that he'd have to, let me go back to these stats that I had up on the screen here. You go back to he'd have to be in the 800-yard range in order to really have made, his career high was 732 in 2022. He also had his career high in targets by a mile, 98. So they really gave it a shot then. Okay. Let's say he gets to 800, even 900. Do you want 1,500 yards? You're asking for a lot of yards out of Darnell Washington. So unless you're bringing in the Jonnu Smith type or someone who can be expected to produce that kind of yardage, who did exactly that last season, he had the fourth most, I believe, yards among all tight ends. The answer to that would be no. Chris Dolnack says, tally up your offensive weapons, include plays to get the ball to them, and adjust to what the defense is giving you. Slants, play action, seam routes, zone blocking, run plays. Yeah, it's rhythm. It's rhythm. I can take all of these things and condense them down to a single word, and then you just move them around. Extraordinary drop here, by the way, from our friend Hans with 50 gifts. That gets us a lot closer to that goal. That is much appreciated. If you have never been a member, make sure you got your accepting gifts thing open. However it is that works on YouTube. I never really understand that. Is that a thing?
Setting, yeah.
It's a setting. Yeah, you have to make sure that you're accepting gifts if they come in, and then YouTube from there. You don't have to do a thing. YouTube assigns them to you, or they don't if you've had one before. But Hans has made it possible for you to come in here and ask questions and not get scolded. So, yeah, that's actually pretty cool here. Michael Cross says 1,500 yards combined would be just under 90 yards per game. Yeah, it's a lot from tight ends. That would definitely be nice, but it's unlikely to happen. So it's a very high number, and it would involve doing something like going and getting a Jonnu Smith and really trying to have an Atlanta-type offense, minus, of course, an Atlanta-type quarterback. Chris says, weren't 770 of those yards against the Bengals? Oh, man, that one game, that Cincinnati scheme will live in infamy. One thing I won't forget about that day, I was out in Cincinnati covering that one, was that in the post-game press conference, Mike Tomlin almost never references a decision that the other team makes or a scheme that the other team employs. He couldn't help himself. There was just no other way to describe what had just happened with Freiermuth on the field. And his quote, some of you can correct me if I'm off on this, but was something to the effect of, hey, if they're going to give us that, we're going to take it. We're going to take it all day. Do you guys remember that? And that would never happen except inside the division. You know what I'm saying? D. Pet says, hey, DK, has Aaron Rodgers spoken highly of Mason Rudolph like he has about Will Howard? Is he giving Mason the Big Ben treatment? Listen, everything that he says is going to be so hyper-examined, and we're not an exception to that. Our outlet, we had somebody assigned to listening to the ESPN program that he was on yesterday. We had them listening for every word and reporting it on our website and all that stuff. So I get it. But we're also reporting stuff that we see. And we've reported on our site. And by the way, make sure you're checking it out. Even if reading isn't necessarily your first and foremost thing, we're reporting intensively and originally on the Steelers ourselves at DK Pittsburgh Sports. That the two of them, Rudolph and Rodgers, were getting along great. There were no issues. There was some joking back and forth. You could ask, and it was funny that the thing that went between the two of them was not so much Rodgers giving Rudolph advice, but Rudolph telling Rodgers, this is how we do stuff. Okay, which makes sense. Mason's the one who's been in this fold for years and years. So he's just saying, hey, this is how we do this one. This is how we do that one. So it's a very different dynamic. When you hear Rodgers talking about Will Howard, he's going to say, man, I'd really like to build up his future and everything. If he says that about Rudolph, isn't he insulting him? I'm going to turn him into. He's been in the league for a while, Rudolph has. Okay, so you gotta don't go too intensively on this stuff. Okay. Jay Mood says Mason's the dude. He doesn't need Rodgers fluffing him. But even then, Rodgers has said stuff about Rudolph, respecting him and who he is and what a good room it is. He's, as Berg Boy is reminding us, one of his quotes was, he's a good quarterback who's played a lot of good football. He mentioned Skylar Thompson, too, on the futures deal. So we're looking way too hard at this stuff. This is one of the concerns that I had, by the way, about doing this, meaning the whole bonus drama thing. But as Warrior points out here, Mason can definitely learn from Rudolph. He's learned from everybody. He's learned from everything. That's how the end of the 2023 season happened. Because he never stopped studying, he never stopped learning, and he never stopped getting better. Bo says, we're going to take a couple more today. Man, hoping this is a bridge year and that Howard is the real deal. Can you imagine what we could do in the draft next year with those picks if a QB isn't needed? Bo, you have virtually no chance of finding out what Howard is in the coming year. I'm sorry. I don't mean to pop the balloon here, but let's be practical, okay? You're going to see a good bit of Howard in Latrobe. You're going to see a lot of bit of Howard in the preseason. Then you're not going to lay eyes on him again. I really believe that. If If Rodgers were to get injured, you're going to see Mason step in. If the first two quarterbacks were to get injured, you're going to see the Steelers do something else. You're not going to see them just take the kid and feed him to the wolves. They saw what that looked like in 2019 with Rudolph. They saw the impact that it had short and long term, and they wouldn't be interested in it. So don't be getting, the hopes up for Howard this year, at least as far as the scenario that you describe, the proving himself this year to the point that the Steelers wouldn't be seeking a quarterback. No. You have to create attention in that room. You have to create attention on that specific positional depth chart more than any other. That was the reason, more than any other, that I was advocating for months that I would hope that they would have just found a way to turn this season into one of those. Charlie says, best case scenario would be for Howard and whoever gets drafted next year to both look good. So you can trade. Yeah, just create good problems. Create good problems. This one reminds me a little bit of, I could cite an example from each of the other two teams in town. The Penguins, everyone's looking at the young goaltending that they have and like, oh no, but we have, 3 of them or 4 of them. Okay, figure out who's the best one, and then the other ones can just go away or become backups or something. Not a big deal. Everyone going back to this past spring training related to the Pirates, we're talking about, they have all these catchers. How can they play all these catchers? Joey Bart's coming off a good season. Henry Davis is a number 1 overall pick. Andy Rodriguez used to be the number 1 prospect in the system. Guess what? It's now the 25th of June, and none of them can hit. So you'd be thrilled if any of them could hit. And Andy can't even stay on the field. So these are never, ever, ever problems. Berg Boy says, and this is the last one for the day, what is your favorite part of reporting? Training camp, big games, or the everyday grind of talking with these guys? It's not any of those things. Reporting, when you get into it, it's never about the events or the type of things. We're not in this to be fans, to be at things and whatever. When you're reporting, you're into it to break stories, to break news. So it's not about being around the guys or whatever else here. I say this all the time. We're not fans. It's just not how this works. We're looking for stories. Okay. I'm trying to put together, whether it's in writing or on this program, original content that's based on original reporting that ideally gives you original insight. You can disagree with me. You can even, think I'm lying or whatever, if that's your thing. But I want to give you something that's not like other things that you hear, in large part because it's based on reporting. It doesn't matter to me at all what kind of actual event it is. Anyway, when we come back, we will take care of quite a bit of business here on the Double Shot of Steelers show. All right, we're going to start and finish this segment in the only way that we should, which is with Hans dropping 50 gifts onto anybody. No excuse to be showing up here with a non-green name anymore if Hans is just letting it rain from the figurative skies. We really appreciate that, Hans. Kerry comes in with it though every day. Kerry's like that reliable running back. It doesn't necessarily produce a whole lot of splash, but gets you what you need on a consistent basis. Charlie dropped 5 gifts on us as well. We have what's our number now? 2004. Oh, we are going backward. Oh, yeah, she's shaking her head over there. Yeah, no. Okay, well, we have between now and what's the date?
You need to be more exciting.
Me? I need to be more what?
Exciting.
Exciting. She says I wasn't exciting in this episode. What's that mean?
In general, that's why the subscriptions are dropping.
Oh, I'm not exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's pretty scalding commentary over there. September 7 is the date that the Steelers play in East Rutherford, New Jersey, against the other franchise known as the Jets. And when we get there, that'll be the day that we hit 3,000. We're going to push really hard in training camp. We just are. This is a dead period for football. This is a dead period for everything, which is why we have moved these goalposts. Florida Dave comes in with $5 and says, green names matter. Yes, they do, Dave. We want to have membership. We want to have it not only so that there's a consistent revenue stream, because it does cost to produce these things, but also to create, what's ideally one of the neater YouTube communities to talk about the Steelers. We're here, at least we try to be, every single day for you. And offer you not just this show as an option, but also the Ramon Foster show, the Matt Williamson show, Chris Halleck's Scout's Eye. The membership, a lot of people don't realize this, isn't about Double Shot. It's just a show that we utilize to promote it. It covers the whole channel, and it covers the members-only content that we do whenever there's big situations, like when the DK Metcalf trade happened, like when Aaron Rodgers was signed, and we just go live. That's for members. That's for people who are with us as regular members. There's also some perks. There's some cool emojis for when you're in the community. There's even a little Ramon Foster emoji. I mean, how can you resist a Ramon Foster emoji? Just on pure adorability. Is that a word? All right, guys, listen, on that quizzical note, we're going to end today's program, and we're going to come back tomorrow when, according to the boss, I need to be a lot more exciting. But I liked today's show. She didn't like it.
I just mean in general.
What do you mean in general? Like more exciting in life? We're going to have a separate conversation here? To bare our souls?
The subscription started falling off about a month ago, so I think
there's just nothing happening. I mean, we had mini camp. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, not going to make stuff up. There's plenty of places they can find that, and that's tough. Michael Cross says, get an extra shot of coffee. Believe me, dude, I'm maxed out. There isn't room for more caffeine in this bloodstream. All right, guys, we'll hook up again tomorrow. All right, more exciting.